My hands were steady even though the barn smelled like rust and sweat. Old Mr. Kessler gritted his teeth as I pulled the needle through his forearm. Almost done, I said. You always cut yourself worse than the last time, you know that. Fence wire don't care about my age. Document. I tied off the last stitch and reached for the gauze. My clinic wasn't much. One exam table, a cabinet full of supplies I rationed carefully, a fan that rattled more than it cooled. But it was mine. Nobody here judged me for staying. My phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it. You gonna get that? Kessler asked. Probably a wrong number. It buzzed again. Then a third time. I sighed and wiped my hands before picking it up. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Daniel Cole? A man's voice, calm, professional. Depends who's asking. My name is Marcus Vance. I work for Vivian Cole. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard that name spoken out loud in years. Kessler must have noticed my face change because he stopped flexing his bandaged arm and just watched me. I don't know anyone by that name, I said, even though I did. Even though the words tasted like a lie the second they left my mouth. She's your mother, Mr. Cole. I know this call is unexpected. Unexpected isn't the word I'd use. She's in the ICU. Her condition is serious. The doctors aren't optimistic. I gripped the edge of the counter. 15 years. 15 years of silence, and now this stranger wanted me to believe she was dying like it was supposed to mean something to me. Why are you calling me? I asked. Not exactly a son she kept in touch with. Because the hospital she built, everything she has, it's falling apart without her. There's no one else who can step in. She asked for you specifically. She asked for me. I almost laughed. That's rich. Mr. Cole, I understand this is difficult. You don't understand anything. My voice came out sharper than I meant it to. Kessler shifted uncomfortably on the table, and I turned away from him, pacing toward the window. You don't know what she did. You don't know what she left behind. I know she's your mother, and she's running out of time. Silence stretched between us. Outside, a rooster crowed somewhere down the road, oblivious to the fact that my entire world had just tilted sideways. I have a clinic, I said finally. Patients. A life. I'm not just going to drop everything. I'll send a car tonight. Whatever you decide when you see the situation, that's your choice. But I think you'd regret not seeing her. The line went dead before I could respond. I stood there holding the phone like it might ring again and take back everything it just said. Everything all right, Doc? Kessler asked. Yeah. I forced the word out. Fine. It wasn't fine. Nothing about it was fine. I thought about my father, how his hands used to shake every time her name came up at dinner, how he stopped setting a third plate at the table years ago because some habits just hurt too much to keep. I thought about the farm, the one thing he had left, the one thing she couldn't touch. I thought about being 12 years old, standing in the driveway, watching her car disappear down the road and never come back. Kessler left with a wave and a promise to bring eggs next week. I barely heard him. I sat down on the exam table, the same one where I'd just stitched a stranger's wound, and stared at my phone like it was a loaded gun. She wasn't dying. Women like Vivian Cole didn't die quietly in hospital beds. They schemed, they controlled, they used people even from 10 feet under. But what if this time she really was? What if this was my last chance to ask her why? A black car pulled up outside my clinic just after sunset. A man stepped out, tall, sharp suit that didn't belong anywhere near these dirt roads. Daniel Cole, he asked. That's me. Marcus Vance. I'm Mrs. Cole's driver. I spoke to you on the phone. I studied him for a second. Something about the way he carried himself didn't scream driver, but I brushed the thought aside. You drive fast? I asked, grabbing my bag. Fast enough. We've got 11 hours ahead of us. 11 hours to watch a woman I don't know pretend to care about me. Great. Marcus didn't respond to that. He just opened the car door and waited. The first few hours passed in silence. I stared out the window, watching the fields blur into darkness. Eventually, Marcus spoke. You haven't seen her in 15 years. Why do you care? Just trying to understand who I'm driving. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. There's not much to understand. She left. My dad stopped talking about her. End of story. Doesn't sound like the end of the story to me. I turned to look at him. You always this nosy with your passengers. Only the interesting ones. Something about his tone made me relax, just slightly. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe I just needed someone to listen. My dad used to set a plate for her every night, I said. For almost a year after she left. Like she was just running late from work. Then one day he stopped. Just stopped talking about her completely. Like she never existed. That must have been hard to watch. It was harder to live. He changed. Got quieter. Angrier, some days. The farm became everything to him, the one thing he could control. And you became a doctor instead of a farmer. Guess I wanted to fix things. People, at least. Couldn't fix him. Marcus glanced at me through the rearview mirror. Sounds like you're still trying. I didn't answer that. It hit too close. Can I ask you something? I said instead. Why does a hospital owner send her driver 11 hours to fetch someone who doesn't even want to come? She's persuasive when she wants something. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. We drove through the night, the conversation drifting between silence and small confessions I didn't mean to give. I told him about Chloe, my only real friend growing up. About the years I spent studying instead of grieving. About how I told myself I didn't need a mother to become who I was. You built a whole life proving her wrong, Marcus said quietly. That takes strength. Or stubbornness. Sometimes they're the same thing. By the time the city skyline came into view, something had shifted between us. I almost trusted him. Almost. The car pulled up to a massive glass building, lights blazing even at this hour. A sign above the entrance read Cole Medical Center in bold letters. This is it, Marcus said, stepping out. I followed him inside, my heart pounding harder with every step. Nurses greeted him by name. A woman at the front desk smiled and said, "Good evening, Dr. Vance." I stopped walking. "Doctor." Marcus turned back, and for the first time, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. "I can explain," he said. "You told me you were her driver." "I am, sometimes. Tonight I was also the one sent to bring you here." "You're a surgeon." My voice came out flat, disbelieving. "You lied to me for 11 hours. I didn't lie about everything. You lied about the one thing that mattered." My hands clenched at my sides. "Where's my mother? Is she even in the ICU?" Marcus hesitated. "She's upstairs. But she's not dying, Daniel." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "What?" "She had surgery on her hand. Nerve damage. She needs 3 months to recover before she can operate again." 3 months. I repeated the words like they belonged to someone else's nightmare. "You told me she was dying. I told you what she asked me to say. You made me believe I was losing my mother for the first time in my life, and it was a lie. She needs someone to run the hospital while she heals. She didn't think you'd come for anything less than an emergency." I stared at him, at this stranger who'd spent half a day listening to my deepest wounds while hiding one of his own. "So this whole ride," I said slowly, "the questions, the advice, was that real, or was that part of the plan too?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "That part was real. Doesn't matter now." I turned toward the door, humiliation burning hotter than the anger. "I want to leave." "Daniel." "Don't." I didn't look back. "You already got what you came for." But my feet stopped at the exit, because behind those glass doors was the woman who left me in a driveway 15 years ago, and some broken part of me still needed to see her face. I found her in a private room on the top floor, her hand wrapped in bandages, sitting up like nothing in the world could touch her. "Daniel." She said my name like she'd been expecting me for years, not 15. "You lied to get me here." "I did what was necessary." "Necessary?" I laughed bitterly. "You had a man tell me you were dying. And you came anyway. That tells me something." It tells you I was foolish enough to still care. I turned toward the door. I'm leaving. Before you do, she said calmly, you should know I still own the farm. I stopped cold. What? Your father's farm. It's still in my name. I never signed it over. That's impossible. He's worked that land for 20 years. And I let him. But ownership is ownership, Daniel. I could reclaim it whenever I choose. My hands curled into fists. You wouldn't. I would, if I had no reason not to. What do you want from me? Run this hospital for 3 months. My hand needs to heal. When I'm ready to return, the farm is yours, fully, legally, no strings attached. You're blackmailing me with my own father's home. I'm offering you a deal. Take it or leave it. I stood there, torn between everything I hated about her and everything my father had left to lose. 3 months, I said finally. Then I walk away, and the farm is signed over completely. Agreed. I turned to leave, disgusted with myself for agreeing to anything with her. Outside her room, I nearly collided with someone rushing down the hallway. Chloe, what are you doing here? Did you really think I'd let you walk into enemy territory alone? Chloe crossed her arms. You called me from the road sounding like your whole world was falling apart. Of course I came. You drove 3 hours for this. I'd drive 30. Now, tell me everything. Before I could answer, a woman in a white coat approached, heels clicking against the floor with practiced arrogance. So you're the farm boy everyone's talking about, she said, looking me up and down. Excuse me. Olivia Hart. Lead surgeon. I run this floor. She smirked. I hear Vivian's handing you the reins for 3 months. Should be interesting, watching someone who probably learned medicine from a textbook older than the hospital itself. I've been practicing for 8 years, I said evenly. In a village clinic, treating farm injuries and the occasional cold. Cute. Chloe stepped forward. You want to say that again? Chloe. I put a hand out. It's fine. It's not fine. She's being rude. Olivia's smile didn't waver. I'm being honest. There's a difference. 2 women stood near the nurse's station, watching the exchange unfold. One had kind eyes and a clipboard pressed to her chest, the other looked sharp enough to cut glass with a glance. That's Rebecca, Olivia said, noticing my attention. Vivian's assistant. And that's Grace, our nutritionist. They'll fill you in on things I don't have time for. Generous of you. I try. Olivia turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Daniel? Try not to embarrass yourself too badly. This isn't your barn. She walked off before I could respond, leaving her words hanging in the air like smoke. I don't like her, Chloe muttered. Join the club. Rebecca approached us, offering a small, apologetic smile. Don't mind Olivia. She's like that with everyone at first. Comforting, I said. She'll warm up, Grace added, though her tone suggested otherwise. Eventually. Maybe. 3 months, I muttered to myself. I can survive 3 months. You sure about that? Chloe asked. Because that woman looked ready to eat you alive. Let her try. Something inside me hardened as I watched Olivia disappear down the hallway, heels echoing with every confident step. I thought about my father's hands, calloused and tired from decades of work she never appreciated. I thought about every sacrifice he made just to keep that farm standing. 3 months. That's all I needed to survive. I'm not here to make friends, I said quietly, more to myself than to Chloe. I'm here to save what's left of my family. And if Olivia keeps pushing, then she'll learn farm boys don't back down easily. Chloe smiled for the first time since arriving. There he is. That's the Daniel I know. I looked around the hospital hallway, at the polished floors and expensive artwork, at the world Vivian built while abandoning the one she left behind. Nobody here was going to make me feel small. Not Vivian, not Olivia, not anyone wearing a white coat with an attitude to match. I came here for my father's farm. I was going to leave with my pride intact too. The consultation room was packed, investors in expensive suits, hospital board members, and Olivia standing front and center like she already owned the room. This patient presents with unexplained joint pain and fatigue, Olivia said smoothly. I'm recommending immediate surgical intervention. I studied the chart in my hands. Have you run a full autoimmune panel? Olivia's eyes narrowed. That's not necessary. The symptoms are clear. The symptoms match at least 3 conditions that don't require surgery. Have you ruled them out? I don't need a village doctor questioning my diagnosis. I'm not questioning it. I'm asking if you did your job. A murmur rippled through the investors. Olivia's jaw tightened. Fine, she snapped. What's your theory, Dr. Cole? Lupus. The joint pain, fatigue, the rash pattern on her arms. It fits better than anything requiring a scalpel. Run the panel before you cut into someone who might just need medication. Silence stretched across the room. One investor leaned toward another, whispering. Olivia's confidence cracked, just slightly. We'll run the panel, she said stiffly. The results came back an hour later. Positive for lupus. Word spread through the hospital fast. By afternoon, nurses were greeting me differently. Less skepticism, more curiosity. Marcus found me in the break room, leaning against the doorframe with something like respect in his eyes. You made Olivia look like an amateur in front of half our investors, he said. I made her look like someone who skipped a step. Same thing, in her world. Marcus smiled slightly. I didn't expect a village doctor to know that much about autoimmune conditions. I didn't expect a driver to be a surgeon. Guess we're both full of surprises. Marcus's smile faded, just a little. Still haven't forgiven me for that. Working on it. Before he could respond, Thomas Reed appeared in the doorway, a folder tucked under his arm and an uncomfortable expression on his face. Daniel, I need to speak with you. It's about the farm contract. My stomach tightened. What about it? There's a clause I think you should see. Thomas opened the folder, pointing to a paragraph buried in legal language. It states the farm transfers back to Vivian if the hospital's profits drop below a certain threshold during your management. Even after the 3 months. That wasn't part of our deal. It's in the original paperwork. I don't think she ever intended to give up full control. Anger flooded through me, hot and immediate. Where is she? I found Vivian in her office, reviewing documents one-handed, her bandaged hand resting uselessly on the desk. You lied to me again, I said, slamming the folder down in front of her. Daniel. There's a clause. The farm reverts back to you if profits drop. You never intended to let it go completely. Vivian's expression flickered, something almost like shame crossing her face. That clause was written years ago. Before any of this. That doesn't make it right. You're correct. Her voice softened, unfamiliar and strange coming from her. I should have removed it before you signed. Why didn't you? Because some part of me still doesn't trust that you'll stay long enough to see this through. That's not an excuse. No, she admitted. It's guilt. I know I don't deserve your trust, Daniel. I abandoned you and your father. I told myself it was for your own good, that staying would have made things worse. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of failing as a mother the way I feared I would. I stood there, stunned by the crack in her usually unshakable composure. So you manipulated me instead, I said quietly. I don't know how to ask for things without controlling the outcome. It's the only way I've ever known how to survive. That's not survival, Vivian. That's just fear wearing a business suit. Her eyes met mine, something vulnerable flashing behind them before the coldness returned like a shield. I'll have Thomas remove the clause, she said. The farm will be yours, no conditions. Why should I believe you this time? You don't have to. But I'm telling you the truth. I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd grown used to expecting. For the first time, I saw something else instead, exhaustion, maybe even regret. It wasn't enough to forgive her. But it was enough to make me wonder if there was more to her than the woman who left me in that driveway 15 years ago. The alarm from Vivian's room echoed down the hallway just after midnight. I ran toward it, my pulse hammering harder with every step. What happened? I demanded, bursting through the door. Sudden collapse, a nurse said. Possible stroke. Her blood pressure spiked without warning. Marcus arrived seconds behind me, his usual calm replaced with genuine panic. Is she stable? We're running scans now, the nurse replied. I stood frozen, staring at the woman who'd lied to me, manipulated me, and still somehow ended up here, genuinely fighting for her life this time. She wasn't supposed to actually be sick, I muttered. Stress can do more damage than people realize, Marcus said quietly. She's been pushing herself for weeks trying to fix everything before you arrived. An hour later, the doctor confirmed it, a minor stroke, caused by chronic stress and exhaustion. Not life-threatening, but serious enough to demand rest. She needs calm, the doctor said. No conflict, no pressure. Just recovery. I sat outside her room for hours, torn between walking away and staying to make sure she'd actually be okay. Olivia found me there near dawn, her usual sharpness softened by something unfamiliar. You could leave, you know, she said. Nobody would blame you. I know. But you're not going to. No. Olivia sat down beside me. I misjudged you when you first got here. You called me a farm boy. You proved me wrong. She almost smiled. I don't say that to many people. I'll take it. For what it's worth, you're a better doctor than half the surgeons on this floor. Including me, on a bad day. High praise, coming from you. Don't get used to it. Marcus joined us, holding 3 cups of coffee, handing me one without a word. Thanks, I said. For the coffee, or for not hating me anymore? Both, I guess. I really am sorry, Marcus said. For lying to get you here. I know. I forgave you somewhere around chapter 4 of this disaster. Marcus laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him since we met. Feels like we've survived a war together. Something like that. When Vivian finally woke, she looked smaller somehow, stripped of the sharp control she always carried like armor. Daniel, she whispered. I'm here. You stayed. Someone had to make sure you didn't die proving a point. A weak smile crossed her face. That sounds like something your father would say. Maybe I got more from him than I thought. Thomas arrived later that morning with the finalized paperwork, the dangerous clause completely removed. Ready to sign? He asked, placing the documents in front of me. I looked at Vivian, still weak in her hospital bed, watching me with something unfamiliar in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear of losing me again. I signed my name across the bottom of the page. It's done, Thomas said. The farm is fully yours. No conditions. I thought about my father's hands, calloused from decades of quiet devotion to land that never truly belonged to him. I thought about how proud he'd be, finally free of the shadow Vivian had cast over his life. Thank you, Vivian whispered, her voice trembling. For staying. For not being like me. You could still choose to be different, I said. It's not too late. Isn't it? You're still here, aren't you? Tears welled in her eyes, the first I'd ever seen from her. I'm sorry, Daniel. For everything. For leaving, for lying, for using you like a pawn instead of treating you like my son. I didn't say I forgave her. Some wounds took longer than one apology to heal. But I reached out and took her hand anyway. Let's start with today, I said. We'll figure out the rest later. For the first time in 15 years, that felt like enough.